Hey everybody, so we're back. The last video we were going over kind of an introduction to the game. I said it wasn't really a tutorial, and it wasn't. I mean, you can't learn to play the game from everything I outlined, but I just wanted to give you guys a sense of where we were with Germany in August of '39. So this video will be showing the first maybe half of the Polish campaign. So with that, I'll kind of cease the commentary for a while and just sort of start playing. Enjoy. So we generally in Hearts of Iron want to make sure that our technologies aren't more than a year ahead of our current year. So the 42, 41 technologies, when we finish researching a year ahead, we want to make sure we remove them from the tech queue. Otherwise, the research is possible, but it's very, very inefficient. So small warship armament advance. So it looks like we finished small warship engine and small warship armament. Main artillery for small ships is ranging from 75mm guns on smaller ones like some torpedo boats or frigates to 120 to 130mm being most common for destroyers in a few classes. Some classes, like the German Narvik class, being armed with 150mm guns. This is light cruiser caliber, so the Germans had a couple of destroyers in World War II that had basically, on a per gun basis, almost light cruiser firepower, which is pretty interesting. Every nation kind of has their own flavor in certain parts of their armed forces. So when we play other nations later on in this channel, we'll go over some of those. Light bomber prototype. So now we're up to still Dornier Doe 17Es, so still not really worth building. So we're about halfway through August, so we don't have much time to go. Let's take a look at the world. So France has some colonial uprisings in Algeria and Morocco. Not a surprise there. Italy has conquered Ethiopia, so this is Italian East Africa. Most of this is pretty historically accurate up to this point. Iraq, Oman, Yemen are British puppets. Britain controls Jordan, Palestine, Sinai, Egypt, Sudan, all the way down to Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, Zambia, and Botswana. And then the Union of South Africa is part of the British Empire as well, although they're sort of their own commonwealth by this point. British India, Burma is part of the UK, but I guess they're their own colony by this point. French Indochina got the beginnings of some uprisings going on here. So the Marco Polo Bridge incident started in 1937 in modern-day Beijing. I guess it was called Beiping at that point. And it looks like Japan has conquered most of northeast China. They haven't actually hit Shanghai yet, which is interesting. Usually that's a naval landing. It looks like the AI hasn't triggered that properly, or they got kicked out of Shanghai by the Chinese, which would be pretty funny. There's still a long way to go here. I expect the Japanese will probably conquer China before too long. Japanese puppet state of Manchukuo. Korea, Japan, yeah, so they haven't obviously started. Pearl Harbor hasn't happened yet, but that's what that looks like. Australia, New Zealand, South Pacific, USA, Canada, South America, that's all kind of what we'd expect for 1939. Let's go back to speeding up things here. Infantry radio communications, that's pretty important. So radio is sort of an emerging technology. I mean, it's been around for a while by the late 1930s, but it has huge bonuses to the defensiveness and toughness of units in this game, which, I mean, in reality, it really is just revolutionary in terms of unit cohesion and allowing communications on the battlefield. So researching smaller, powerful, and more mobile radio communications for infantry provides much better command and control. Infantry tactics and combat capabilities greatly improve as a result. So that translates into defensiveness, so how effective we are at defending infantry battalions, and toughness, so how much they resist being damaged. So we're pretty caught up on radio technologies now. We're still working on radar 1 and airplane radio communications 1. So I set a hotkey for when I record my voice for the game speed to slow down, because I'm probably not focusing on the game when I'm monologuing. Okay, so we're slowly making progress on our artillery technology. So we're now at 1941 range finding. Range finding is, as you'd expect, the ability of a gun crew and a gun to determine the correct range to target. We're also at 41 techs for barrel and ammunition, and we're still working on carriage designs, so how mobile RAT guns and artillery are. It looks like we have some units have been produced, so we now have another carrier air group. Right now I'm organizing these in Kiel. They're not attached to carriers yet, so this is now TG4, which stands for Traeger Group A. Probably butchered that pronunciation, but we'll be renaming these when they get assigned to carriers. It's important to set a leader too that has an impact on the unit's organization. So you want to choose a air general that has the fleet destroyer modifier. Made some progress in our operational doctrine. Let's see, what did we just research? Okay, Special Forces Unit Combined Arms, so I want to make sure that's not too far ahead. We'll get close to September 1st, and then we'll slow down quite a bit. Civil Defense Advance, Naval Bomber Prototype, and Submarine Torpedo. This is huge. So this improves not only the sub's convoy attack and sea attack, but also its positioning. I guess you can envision, like, if the torpedo can reach further, then the sub has more positioning opportunities. So that's how this game models that. It also improves the ability, the physical distance of the sub, which is interesting. Let's go check that out really quick. So torpedoes are at 42 spec now, and then basic torpedo, we're still working on 38. Let's see if that unlocked anything else. It did not. So most of our other submarine technologies are for 1940 spec, so we got a little bit of time to go on that. High density alloys. This has a big impact on the striking power of our anti-tank shells, so that'll factor into being able to research things like armor-piercing cap ballistics. Small warship rudder and screws advance, that affects destroyers and torpedo boats. Let's go check that out. Let's see. Okay, we can research 1940 class destroyers soon, which is good. Alright, so close enough. Let's start setting up our battle plan. Alright, so we'll be setting up a... Let me actually turn off another battle I had going here. So we're going to use Hearts of Iron Black Ice's built-in battle plan editor. So let's start a new battle plan. Poland 1939. And let's map out where our armies will be going. So 5th Army will be advancing down to basically the bare minimum. Let's actually enable the victory point mode, because that's how the game determines how close to surrender a nation is. So it looks like a part of 14th Corps will be trying to get at least as far as Modlin, since we don't have mobile units in East Prussia, and that's fine. So we'll use the infantry slim arrow, and then they'll just be holding the flanks here. And then 3rd Army will be capturing Danzig, 5th Corps. 6th Corps will be advancing to cut across and cut off the Danzig corridor. 7th and 8th will be advancing directly to Warsaw. 9th Corps will be advancing to Lodz. 10th to Krakow. And 11th to Krakow. And then 1st Mountain will be basically bypassing the southwest of Poland and heading for Lvov. So I guess this is the Ukrainian or the Polish pronunciation. Someone will have to tell me. And then the interesting part, since we don't have more than one Panzer army now, we're going to be focusing on cutting across southwestern Poland with 1st and 2nd Panzer Corps to cut around Warsaw and cut it off from eastern Poland. And by this point, the Soviets will be advancing into eastern Poland, so maybe we'll link up with them somewhere around Brest-Litovsk. So that's our battle plan. We'll go ahead and save that. And we can, now that it's saved, we can trigger that on or off with this button here, which is nice. So we'll go back to political map mode. We'll make sure we slow things down here. And when August 29th hits, we're there. Let's check our decisions. So we're going to talk to the Russians and form the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, which was the secret German and Soviet plan to set up regions of influence and in the process cut Poland in half between them. And obviously it was a non-aggression pact, so we'll say okay to that. This gives us cores on western Poland, and cores for the uninitiated are Hearts of Iron's way to track, you know, claimed areas. So Germany's claiming these western regions of Poland. Alright, so now we can, if we go to political map mode again, it's not showing up province claims, but, oh, no, yeah, it does. Sorry, the western part of Poland now has Germany claiming. If I set to region map mode, it'll show German claims on all these provinces. I guess it's just the western ones. Parts of Poland that would have been part of Imperial Germany, I suppose. Or at least that's what it's trying to model. Yeah, something like that. Okay, we'll go back to political map mode and we'll get started on invading Poland here, now that we've set up that agreement with the Soviets. Okay, radar advance. That's good. So let's start building some radar really quick. Radar is pretty important to defend our industrial centers, so we'll start building some radar stations in Western Germany. So the effect isn't doubled by putting in more than one tick on this, but it does make it a more powerful bonus. So we'll go over what radar does for air combat later. I think that's probably good for now. I'll build 2 in Berlin as well, and maybe 2 in Stuttgart. So Western Germany and Berlin have some basic radar coverage. Let's see what production time. So end of 1939. That's not bad. All right, so we're going to declare war on Poland at midnight, September 1st. Let's see, I think the decisions should pop up right around then. So when I'm setting up battles and moving orders, I usually stick to 1 or 2 speed. So it looks like the decision to start the Polish campaign is called Blitzkrieg. So we'll wait for that to trigger before we start. Okay, it's September 1st. Let's check our decisions here. Okay, it's actually called Danzig War Peace. Not War Peace, Danzig or War. So we will be checking that, and then Blitzkrieg as soon as it shows up. All right, Poland, World War II begins. All right, Ribbentrop asked the Poles for a return of Danzig and a strip of German territory across the Polish corridor on which a German-run road and rail link could be built. This was refused. So we are attacking Poland. World War II begins. So if we check our diplomacy, the UK is now at war with us. So we're at war with the Allies as it exists in 1939, which is these countries, mainly Poland, UK, and France, and their puppets. So let's go ahead and, before we start fighting Poland, let's remove all of our convoys so they don't just get annihilated by the Royal Navy. We'll turn off auto-maintain convoys so that the AI doesn't just start remaking them as soon as I delete them. So we want internal convoys for supplies between Stettin and Königsberg, so we'll leave that one. That's in the Baltic, so it's not as much of a problem. As well as Stettin and Elbing, that's also in the Baltic. We don't need to trade with South Africa anymore, or with Canada. That will be cut off shortly anyway. And you can see our number of available transports and exports and escorts is going up. So it'll take about a week, but we'll start seeing the impact of cutting off our trade in our available resources up here. So we're going to have to just keep an eye on those. All right, so let's start issuing orders. So 5th Infantry Corps advancing into Danzig. 6th into the Danzig corridor. Alright, southwestern Poland. This is usually kind of a tough nut to crack, as the Poles have taken residence with some of the old Czech fortifications in this area. And then we're going to cut into their underbelly with our mountain divisions. And then the panzer divisions will be advancing around the urban areas. Simplified terrain mode, you don't really want to attack urban areas with tanks unless you really absolutely have to. Plains is tank country, so we want to stick to those. Black ice accentuates the movement and terrain negatives for units moving through areas that are forested, marshy, urban. So whereas in Hearts of Iron it might have not have been advisable to attack cities with tanks, and in Black Ice you really don't want to because the negatives are just so extreme. So we'll be bypassing both Lodz and Katowice with our tank divisions, and then we'll fan out into central Poland once we get past those. Actually, we'll move these guys up here. Alright, I think that's our movement. Oh yeah, and East Prussia. So we'll keep 63rd Infantry in Osterloh just to make sure we don't get flanked around the back. Okay, and we'll also attack Suwałki. Alright, that's our initial movements. We will wait for the first battles to commence before we start committing our air units. We don't really see any clear Polish air units available, but why not? Let's start strategic bombing Poland tonight. And we'll also do some runway cratering missions tonight. And let's see, where's KG3? KG3 is in Leipzig. We'll also do strategic bombing of Katowice. We're going to have to watch these carefully. We'll also bomb, let's see, Lodz, strategic bombing at night. So hitting the night button at a certain point, I'm guessing around 5 a.m., these bombers will stop bombing these targets. So basically they're going to get one run in early morning on September 1st before they return to base, and then we'll set new missions. Alright, so let's set the speed to 1, and we'll just see what happens. Okay, combat is commenced, and we can see our air units have already crossed the frontier. Let's see. KG4 is bombing Lodz. It's in the fog of war, so we can't see exactly what's going on, but we're damaging their metal, energy, and rare materials. And if we look up here, we'll see any air combat that develops with Polish fighters. We don't have very many fighters right now, but I'll set JG7 on any Polish fighter concentrations that arise. We also have some Polish semi-motorized divisions, so we'll hit those with our Stukas as soon as these two infantry divisions engage. Okay, so now we can see our bombing runs. So they're not taking too much damage. Oh, so we have Polish fighters visible. So let's set JG7 on an air intercept mission with a range of... they can't reach that far into Poland. That's actually not so good for us. Let's see if we can get them a little closer. Let's send our fighters down to Breslau. We'll also set our home defense fighter groups on some defensive missions just to make sure the British don't get sneaky with their strategic bombers. Okay, where's 3? Okay, so Western Germany's covered. Let's see. And then our naval ports are mostly covered. Yes, covered. Okay, so now we're good. So these guys should return to base, and you won't see them leaving again because it's now 5 a.m. So we got our nuisance raids in just to kind of scare the Poles. Looks good. So green generally means that the combat is favorable. Red means that it is not favorable, and I'm sure there's a good reason for this. So looks like that should change any moment to green. The rest of our frontier battles are looking good. Let's move it up to 2 speed. Our tanks are moving at 3.45 kilometers an hour. They're a little slow because they're in forested parts of Silesia. Okay, we're winning battles. Low casualties to start with. So the Poles are running from the frontier, which is what we would expect. We've won the battle for Gdynia, so let's move our Ost fleet up to the Bay of Danzig to intercept any Polish ships that are trying to run away. We'll also move our first surface action group out of Kiel. And then we're going to wait a day or two before we start sending out our submarines. We'll probably devote a part of the next video to how we set up our U-boats. Alright, so we lose the effect of the Austrian economic miracle, which is fine because Austria is not its own country anymore. Nanjing massacre, so that means the Japanese just captured Nanjing. They captured Wuhan. They did. Okay. We're gaining a SS Totenkopf Standarte, which is eventually going to form the SS Nord division, so we definitely want to hold on to that. Let's assign that to... So I don't usually use the armies that the game generates for me. I already have them. We'll assign this guy to the SSTV Inspectorate. Okay. We'll be moving one of these into Poland as a garrison force. Okay, tanks, it's time to cross the frontier. Let's go. We won the battle for Katowice, so we've captured are about to capture our first Polish city. Let's move it up to 2. Won the battle for Suwałki and for Mlawa, which is good. Our mountain divisions have captured this south area below Krakow, which is also great. Alright, let's check our decisions here. So we are now able to trigger service by requirement, mandatory conscription, and we're also going to set heavy industry emphasis. So we lose some resource efficiency, but we gain 10% IC, which is definitely worth it. We don't need to change any ministers right now. Don't think. I am going to kick Goring out of Armaments Minister. I don't know why he's in Armaments. And Hallmar Schlacht has IC efficiency for production, which is definitely worth it. Okay, we're about to capture Katowice. I don't want these army commands, thank you. Alright, so it's now the night of September 3rd, so we got our bombing going again. We've done some minor damage to their industrial capacity. It's good. Let's check on the health of our bomber units. It's always good to check on bomber health. So the Polish Air Force is not really doing any significant damage to us, which is great. Alright, so this is an interesting thing. So our 1st Panzer Corps command unit, since there's no tanks, it's just a HQ unit and an armored car, is the fastest unit we have. So you do want to be careful about your HQ units getting too far ahead of your actual divisions. And this can be useful for cutting off enemies. Like, we're going to definitely want to cross the river here since there's no Polish units to defend. But if there was a Polish infantry division here, this would shatter very, very quickly because there's really no combat power in this HQ unit. So we can use them, though, as a reconnaissance group, which we will do right now. Alright, so making some headway. We've now hit this river. So I was talking a little bit earlier about how to avoid your orders of battle getting all tangled, and you just need to be deliberate about who captures what. So I don't really need 43rd Infantry to capture Korotzen, so I'm going to just tell them to go straight ahead, and then 41st and 42nd will advance to Konin. Alright, so we're really damaging them now. So let's actually switch from industrial capacity bombing to ground attack, since their armies are kind of melting away already. Let's just start hitting anything that looks like it might get in the way of our advance. So KG1, KG2, we're going to bomb these Polish units around Lodz, and then KG3 is going to bomb this semi-motorized division. KG4 is going to advance runway strike Warsaw. So we'll go runway cratering. And these are day and night missions. We are taking some damage now, but it's not in the dangerous category yet. Alright, so we're going to fan out these infantry divisions just to capture some territory. We're not going to wait for our tanks though. 46th will capture this river crossing as well. Okay, 1st Panzer Corps is really going slow. I might have mispositioned them. I think they needed to be on the frontier. Okay, so their runways are pretty messed up. So they're not going to be able to repair their air units. That's the purpose of doing that. We'll switch KG3 to bombing Warsaw as well. We'll have to wait for their combat to finish. Alright, KG3 attack Warsaw. Well, we seem to be stuck on these air units. Alright, has... No. Okay, where's JG7? Alright, so they're not ordered to do anything. That's my mistake. Let me just make sure that they're covering our bombers. We'll go up to 2 speed. German-Soviet commercial agreement. So this gets triggered usually by the Soviets deciding to invade eastern Poland. We're going to accept because it gives us fuel and rare materials that we are losing because our international trade has ground to a halt. We're going to accept. So we get crude oil and rare materials. We get one more SS Totenkopf, and we're going to turn down these armies. Okay, let's see. I'll just leave those guys unassigned to something for now. Alright, so our panzer divisions are finally in the battle. We're fighting a garrison division here. Alright, let's see if JG7 is engaged or not. Okay, so we are actually getting tangled with British heavy bombers now. So let's see how this goes. Just watch their health and organization. Okay, yeah, we're definitely making a difference. We can't really tell what they're bombing yet. It looks like they're going after... Looks like they're going after Leipzig. They are going after Leipzig. So let's make sure we get some more AA going there. See if we can intercept them on their return journey. JG5 is based out of Hanover. Looks like we need to add some more fighter groups to them. They're a little under strength. Alright. I'm going to try to keep these videos to 30 to 35 minutes, so we're going to have to cut it here pretty soon and go to our next video. Just add another U-boat group. So submarines gain from the Wolfpack modifier, which is right here. That's a very powerful modifier. And then we also get spotter and some others that are beneficial to U-boats. So let's just look at the situation now. So we've made inroads into western Poland. We've captured Suwałki, which is a Polish kind of air base in eastern or northern Poland, which is really important to take away from them. We've made inroads south toward the fortress of Modlin. They're counterattacking us right now, but I don't expect that to get anywhere. We've captured Gdynia, and we're going to move into the Danzig corridor for real now. And our tanks have pushed south of Lodz, which is good. Our infantry is almost there. 1st Panzer Corps is behind. I'll have to berate von Manstein for being so late to the party. So that's it for now, guys. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.